astute.
You were on on TV.
Yeah, you're on CAX.
So Rodney was the big star.
Oh, Rodney was the star.
Oh, for the interview yesterday, yeah.
Over 126?
205.
205.
Another opportunity missed.
I know.
Well, I got fan calls,
Really?
Your girlfriend doesn't count.
and none of my exes or none of the.
We are live, just a reminder.
Did some Swedish
So we're back to continue our day with more discussion of H81, and we're gonna have the walkthrough in a couple of minutes, but before we launch into that, committee questions or thoughts? John?
And just because the committee might know, how many agricultural dealers are in the state, do you think? I was thinking 10 to 12.
Yeah, so there's the big ones, there's United, which is now United Ag, which is not a Vermont company,
Right.
but they own 3 or 4 John
Yeah.
Deere, the only John Deere
They bought
dealers
up all the
in-
Nord tracks.
in the state. There's Champlain
Valley.
which pretty much owns all of the New Holland, they've got the
Kubota.
Case IH,
Who owns the Kubota one in East?
that's Champlain.
That's Champlain.
So it's fairly, I don't wanna use the word monopolized, but there's Monroe Tractor, but they're out of New York. They have 2 locations in Vermont. They service Claus, Case, some other smaller H&S, some things like that. As far as like independent, there's Northeast Farm Service, which is a Honda dealer, and they do some, I think they're maybe still have their Krone, they might deal in Krone, which is hay tools.
There's some Coyote dealers.
Yeah, they might also be
Beach Repair and Marshall.
Pete's, yeah. It's like a handful. Is there any logging anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Anderson Equipment, which is based in East Montpelier. There's Milton Cat in Richmond. And there's United Ag and Turf, which does sell forestry equipment.
Does CRF out of Milton, are they
C
CFW?
or
What is it?
C something W.
Yeah, it's one of them.
They sell Volvo,
Yeah,
which,
I don't know if they do forestry stuff.
no, I think those are more bucket loaders. I
There's
think.
who's the Komatsu dealer?
Komatsu dealer is Anderson Equipment, and they're all over the Northeast. And they have a small satellite off of Route 2 going toward East Montpelier from the roundabout. And I have a couple pieces of equipment that I interact with them.
So my follow-up is that are there any independent fixers of ag or forestry equipment?
That is a good question, because I, like some of the folks that gave testimony, try to find someone who's an electrical genius. He's a neighbor, lives 3 miles down the road, and he can look at a schematic with only Swedish writing around it and fix things. Wow. But those sort of, what some of the testimony that we heard today, they spoke to that there are a lot of really genius mechanics, but they don't necessarily have access to the diagnostic equipment. They have a lot of skills. I am not one of them. And they, by the way, can call Anderson Equipment and say, this is my problem. And very often service or parts will try to walk them through some of that stuff. So I've had some positive experience with a good mechanic trying to work with the distributors or the dealers. And have found quite a lot of cooperation. Then they actually have to order the part, or a mechanic who's wizard on the internet can take the number. Oh, that's something relay. I can have it delivered tomorrow from Indiana. And it's a quarter the cost, and that happens a lot. But it's the diagnostic piece where that one fuel sensor, not a fuel line, goes blank, and it's hard to, without the diagnostic equipment, to actually locate that one code. That's the problem.
Everybody have the bill handy so that when we get started on it?
There is I'll just talk about it. So one of the things with, like, to that point is I think, and this is my personal opinion and just being involved in this stuff, I think it's pretty unlikely in this area that many farmers would take advantage of buying diagnostic equipment to service their one or two tractors. Like, it's still going to be, I don't know that this bill, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know that it's gonna be like, it's a little bit projected as a real savior for small, or for farms, and I'm not sure that in this area that it's, in my opinion, would really have that much, like, I'm not gonna go out and buy diagnostic software to fix, I've got maybe 3 pieces of equipment that could plug into something like that. And the amount, that's why I personally, have a pretty solid relationship with a dealer, is there's an expectation that I buy equipment from them, and that's part of the deal, is that they work on it. I'm not saying it's fast or quick, but I just don't want people to think that this is like gonna be like a saving grace for a lot, because most people I don't think are gonna have, most farms, in which is every farm essentially in Vermont. There's a couple that may have enough of a fleet of equipment that would justify buying diagnostic and have a tech train. I mean, it's not just buying the equipment, it's knowing how to use it and whatever. I think for me personally, and that's what the piece we haven't talked about as much, is the parts part. I think that's would be a really helpful piece for farmers. And I'll give you an example of, so I run a Claas round baler, which is a German company, and they've been very, very good at, you can only get parts for a Claas piece of equipment through Claas. Like, they control that. There's no aftermarket. Like, you can't go online like you can with most things and say, I'm looking for a chain. I had this happen. A chain broke last season on my baler, and it's a brand new piece of equipment. Dealer didn't have one in stock because it's not a super common thing. It had to be drop shipped from Germany and took a while to get there. You can't go to Reed Supply in St. J where you usually get roller chain and get this special chain, because it's so, like, that would be much more of and that's something that I hear much more about in my farming community, is parts. Parts are the issue. It's waiting on parts, and having to get parts specifically through dealers or the manufacturer. But I don't know that this legislation would actually affect that in any way. And I'd like to hear more about that from somebody.
Can I address what
Sure.
So you set up a scenario of a farmer potentially purchasing or not the software, but my relationship with the person who fixes my truck, my tractor, I deal with the Kubota dealership as well. But then, when my tractor broke down in my driveway, when I was plowing my driveway, and I couldn't get out for 4 days, and Champlain wouldn't send somebody out because I was on a long waiting list, I called my buddy Brian, who also services about 24 other farms with their tractors. He might be the guy who would use the software. So it still benefits me that Brian would have the software. Otherwise, I'd still be in a waiting list with Champlain and I
No,
wouldn't be here.
absolutely. I just didn't want people to think that this was, it was gonna be like you just,
To solve all.
it's not like a wrench.
Yeah,
We're not like saying, oh, now every farmer can have a 9/16 wrench where they couldn't before. You
Yeah.
know, like this is very specific, and like to that point, very true, but like the diagnostic tools and software for John Deere are gonna be different than
Yeah.
Kubota and Case and, you know, so I'm not downplaying the significance or saying this isn't a good idea. I just don't want people to think that it's gonna be like.
and it may not address the parts issue, which I
Right.
also am suffering from, like, something as simple as a fuel line.
Yeah.
It's like, when is that coming in?
Yeah, it occurs to me that like the reason the software piece might be helpful is that it opens up opportunities that are not currently imaginable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
there are possible creative ways that people could develop co-ops or partnerships, or we've heard about conservation districts that own a piece of equipment that farmers
Sure.
can then, things like that can happen that just people don't even waste time thinking about now because it's not available. And like the equivalent in automobiles, right, is like not every car owner doesn't go buy the diagnostic
Right.
software, but like your local mechanic can, so you don't have to take it to the dealer, you can take it to your mechanic. And
Sure.
so like the possibility of that kind of those opportunities
Yep.
is there, and you can still, if that doesn't develop, or it's slow to develop, or it doesn't work for you, or it doesn't happen in your area, nothing changes about the relationship that you have with your dealer and what you're continuing to go on doing.
Do we know where
Except
the
that
lawyer
maybe
is?
the prices come down because there are.
How long are we gonna wait?
Sure.
I had a 1 a.m. fire alarm and I'm exhausted and it happened.
We're reaching out now to see.
Okay.
Is that clause there? So,
Yeah, it doesn't solve all the problems, but it solves half the problem, kind of. And I think it does well to solve half the problem. I mean, I think what you said was just basically a more well-articulated version of what I was hinting at.
Asked, since we're not sure, how are people, so generally speaking, having the attorney walk through the bill is, the first thing we do before we sit down and actually take any testimony, and we've already, already changed that approach here. How are you feeling about what's in the bill? Just, I'm curious. It sounds like, based on the conversation, that people have a pretty good sense of what the bill actually is trying to do. And we'll have that walkthrough either in the next few minutes or hopefully tomorrow. But just, I'm curious to know whether people feel like, yeah, I understand what's there, or no, I'm not quite there yet, or not sure.
I understand what's there, I just don't know that it's going to solve any problem.
Yeah, I guess I have a good understanding of parts of it, I guess.
Good.
I'm wondering, like, my question is where the push is coming from. Like where, why is this a big, it's just this is not something I hear about. And I know they talked about that earlier, but like, I'm just wondering what's the driving force, if that's like really behind this, and maybe that's more for the sponsor, maybe that's a question for Catherine.
Possibly, yeah, and maybe the answer is hidden in the findings.
Yeah.
just for input, Henry, I was in the rural caucus when Catherine Sims brought this up. So however she's connected in the world, this was new to pretty much everyone on that
Yep.
committee. It sounded like it might be helpful. The unintended consequences, which we'll hear about tomorrow, are another story that I don't know anything about, but some of the emails I've received, talked about those consequences, but they were from either dealers or manufacturers. So I can't judge, the objectivity.
No,
I
word,
haven't heard anything. I followed up in an email.
okay.
Let's go on.
And he said, I just heard on his way in 5.
Okay.
And 5,
If anybody, for whatever reason, isn't able to stay, that's always, up to you.
Put your health first.
well, I just wonder how long it's gonna take me to walk it through.
I think it's around 8 pages.
It depends how many questions we have.
Shut up.
I'm good till 4:30 and then I'm gonna fold up, I think.
Okay,
I'm gonna grab some water.
okay.
Assuming I have internet back at the hotel, I can watch it later. It's back now, right? The internet at the hotel?
I haven't been there since
Yeah.
7:45, so I don't wanna make any promises.
Rodney, Williamstown used to send its road crew equipment mostly to dealers or do it themselves, and